let's get started. I guess today's topic we're going to talk about how to handle rejection and how to closing. So let me share a screen so we have it right from the get-go here. So let's get started. Overcoming objection and closing technique. Most of us, some of you are new, but if we in sales, we pretty much know there's many ways to skin a cat, many ways to close a deal, and many ways to handle objection. I mean, that's nothing new. Every day in life, what we do, we close every day while we're talking. We try to close. If we're not closing, you're being sold. So that's nobody wants to be sold. Let's get right into it. Little disclaimer. You agree and acknowledge that the presentation it's for general purpose. Opinion, view expressed, president, and not legal. It's not a legal advice. It's my opinion, my experience. Want to share with all of you. So at any time you want to jump right in, you have any questions, not a problem with me. Everybody does it differently. I have seen some presenter like to present everything before they answer any question. I like to do it, as you have question comes up, and then we could answer it right away. So that's the housekeeping. And let's jump right into it. As in real estate, we represent, as an agent, we represent because we represent buyer or seller or homeowner or a landlord or tenant. The reason is that because you're a licensed realtor or licensed real estate agent. So who do you represent? You got to make that clear from the get-go before you go into negotiation, before you go into closing, presentation, and so forth. So are you representing listing? Are you doing listing? Are you representing the seller, owner? Are you representing selling, which means you represent buyer, represent tenant, and so forth. Or sometimes you represent both, right? So from time to time, you get the opportunity to represent both, but you got to be very careful when you represent both. Reason being is that who's paying you your commission? Most of the time will be the listing. So your duty will be more leaning toward the listing side or whoever pays you. So if you represent both, you gotta be very careful what size you're on, okay? Any question so far? So we're pretty clear on that. Now we go right into it, dealing with rejection, objection, and so forth. Let's say you do your marketing, you get a lead, you start talking to your client. This is for the listing side. You try to sell their home and you do your presentation and everything went great. And then all of a sudden they decided to go, well, you know what, you really not right for me and so forth. Usually when you do a listing presentation, you are being interviewed by the homeowner or the landlord. So if you are a new agent, most likely there's not much for you to present as your experience unless you have other experience beside real estate that you could present yourself. How good of a managed person you are, because doing the real estate transaction or a listing transaction, you have to manage your file, your paperwork, and the process. So if they give you a rejection, it's nothing personal. Most of the time, it's a business decision for a seller or owner. Maybe it's a bottom line. You really don't know. So part of the dealing with rejection is that you got to listen. You got to listen more to see what, why, how you were being rejected or objected by the owner or the seller or the landlord. For instance, you want to listen to what they have to say. And this will give you an opportunity to learn so you won't make the same error or same mistake the next time on the next presentation or the next listing. Don't blame, don't avoid the blame game. Don't blame, oh, because of this is not my fault, it's not me. Nobody's at fault here. It's just that your presentation or you come across not sincere. That's very important when you do listing or when we're dealing with people here. So you gotta be honest and sincere. If you don't, they could see right through it. And especially owner and dealer, the investor, they've been around the block, so they know. If you try to lie to them, they really know because they've been around. They know what they're doing. As for the first-time homeowner, it's more of an education for you. You kind of teach them and show them how the process works, right? So if you get rejected, you didn't get the deal, you didn't get the listing, no big deal. Don't let that get you down or bother you or keep you awake at night. Remember, in real estate, in any sales, in any deals, the way we look at it to be positive is a numbers game, okay? If you do 100 deals a year, or if you go to 100 presentations a month, chances are, what are the percentage of you getting a deal or getting a listing? Probably 5 or 10%. You definitely want to push that up to 20% to 100% every time you go to a listing, a presentation. You want to be able to score that. You want to be, because you're not the only real estate agent that they have approached or they have interviewed. So you're going to have competition. So you want to be stand out with others. So rejection is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So you learn what are not to do anymore on the next presentation. Always think positive, moving forward. Hey, one number down, which means if my goal is to have 100 presentation, I have 99 more to go. And the next one, I'm going to get it. So don't let that be a negative. Always think positive, think ahead, moving forward. Positive is a good thing because it brings, if you are familiar with law of attraction, if you think positive things will come into your life. Things will happen for you. It might not happen overnight. It might happen within a month. And all of a sudden say, hey, why people start calling me, asking me for listing? Because you're thinking positive. But if you think negative, oh, this is not right. I should get the listing and so forth. And all the negative things going to come into your life. So rejection is not a bad thing. It's just keep in mind, nothing is personal. It could be a business decision that they make. It could be anything. It could be your commission. It could be the way you structure the commission. It could be your presentation that you say that you've been around for 20 years and they look at your license number as starting with a number 2. If you've been around for 20 years, your license should start with a 0, 01 or 00. So that's something that is a dead giveaway, right? Okay. So if you're something that you're not, don't present it that way, right? We've been around long enough. Let's say if we encounter we have a listing, we encounter a buying agent. They would tell me all kind of story. This is a true story. They would tell me, because he is an older gentleman, which gives him some credit as to have some experience because of the way he looked at his age. And he was telling me, I've been doing this for like 30 years and so forth. And I've done it for only like 20 years. And my numbers start with 013. And I asked him for a business card. Well, guess what? His numbers start with 019. How can you be in business for 30 years with a number that is higher than mine? I did it for 20 years. It just doesn't make sense, right? So those are dead giveaway, and your real estate license number does not change. So don't try to be somebody that you're not. Seller, owner can see through that. They know how sincere you are. If something you don't know, if you get rejected, you say, hey, I'll find out. If they ask some question, if they interview you, you're not sure, then you say, I'll find out. I'll get back to you. And they know if that you are sincere. You're not trying to BS them to get the listing. Now, same thing go for you representing a buyer agent, right? You would be a buyer agent. Same thing, you can tell them, I sold how many homes, I've done how many deals, and are you be able to produce that document to show them that I have done all this in the past? If you do, good for you. You should tell them that. Projecting your experience is important, so the buyer have confidence in what you do. It's like anything else. If you know what you're doing, people will come to you, will attract to you, because they know that if they give the deal to you, they know it's going to be a smooth transaction. It won't have any problem. If there is a problem or issue, you would spot it ahead of time. So being an agent, getting rejected, don't feel bad. I myself get rejected a lot of time. Even now we get rejected. So it's a learning experience, and it's a good thing, right? So you learn it, don't do it again. If you do it again, shame on you. Learn it, okay? Any question so far on the rejection before we move on to the next topic? Will be closing. Anyone?
I have like just a general question for you in regards to your listing presentation. Do you have like a format that you use all the time, or do you have like a script that's from one of the industry leaders that you use?
What we do from my experience is that there's basic thing that you need to do for your listing presentation. First, you gotta get information of which property it is, what type of property, how the title is being held. Make sure you're talking to the right people. So I'll be talking to Lena, right? But this whole, the property is under a trust. Well, how do you know Lena is the trustee? We don't know. So you got to do your homework to make sure you qualify that. You don't want to talk to somebody that, oh, by the way, I'm just the representative, so I got to get back to you on that, which means you wasted your whole presentation not talking to the right person that could give you the listing, or could tell you that, hey, you being rejected. So what we do is a format. What we usually do, there's 2 or 3 different types. If you're dealing with a person that you don't know, not a referral, let's say you did your marketing, they come to you. It's a very different than if it was a referral. Let's talk about just the one that you got the lead from your marketing. So they want to sell a property. Obviously, you're going to ask for their address, run the property information. Sometimes that gives you 100% correct information. Sometimes it doesn't. So if you think that is something that's to make sure that is 100% correct, you would ask your title company to pull a prelim. Like my recent listing, when I pulled the property profile, it said that person, that name, which is correct. Then I said, well, let me just double check. So I asked title company to run a prelim for me. It came back, it was under a trust. She is a trustee. Now I have to, if you get the presentation, if they love you, they say you got the listing, and when you start listing under her name, you got to relist it again under the trust name. But her as the trustee, she signed on the trustee on the trust behalf. So that's important when you're dealing with how you do your presentation. So you don't get rejected by doing your homework. The seller will know, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. He know exactly. When you ask that question to them, hey, by the way, I noticed that when you do a presentation, you go, by the way, I noticed the title says your name, but I also check with the title company, it says under a trust. So which one is it? They will tell you, because they know. Sometimes they forget. It's not their fault. Remember, don't blame anybody. It's not their fault, because it's been time. They already put in the trust for like 6, 7 years. They don't remember. They always think because they sign the paperwork, they don't remember everything. So by doing that, you earn credit. You have credibility. To the owner, to the seller, they go, wow, this guy or this person know what he's doing. Right there, you score a lot of points already. So part of the presentation also, you want to do a comp, because when you do a listing, they're gonna ask you that question, right? They're gonna ask you, how much you think my house is worth? What are you gonna tell them? Hey, go get an appraisal to get 100%, right? It's always that. Go get an appraisal, a couple $100. Now, you could do that. You could do that. You get some of these owners very stubborn. They say, well, I don't know exactly how much before I list. It's not a problem. You get an appraisal. Now that appraisal could be 100% correct, but it's from an appraiser, just like a CPA. You have your tax document at the end of the year. You still have the same kind of tax document that you save to do your tax at the end of the year. You give it to your CPA, he will come out with a number, say, hey, I could get you back $3,000. So you gave the same set of tax document that you have to a different CPA. They'll come back and say, I could save you $8,000. Why there's a difference? Because of knowledge, skills, experience of two different CPA. And you could explain the same story to them. Say, hey, look, appraiser is the same. Each appraiser has their own opinion, how they formulate, how they appraise the value of the property. So the most important appraisal is going to be if you're going to sell it to a buyer that's going to borrow from a lender, that appraisal is going to count, because the lender going to base on their appraisal, not yours. But yours, it just gave you an idea. But then you go right away, say, don't waste your money on the appraisal. I could get you a comp for free. But that's not 100%. That's give you a rough estimate, so you know. Plus the market goes up and down. Right now it's a seller market. So seller, this is your great opportunity to sell. If I'll give you a comp, let's say $500,000, if you put it about 5% below, depending on how you want to market it. So you tell them all this during the presentation. And if they like what you're doing, some say, no, I want to list it at whatever your comps in, or I want to list a little bit higher, because the market is higher, right? So let them come in and they gonna negotiate down the price. I like it that way. So you don't want to argue with them. If you feel that they really wanted that and they're gonna give you the listing, take it. List it that way, and you tell them that, just keep in mind, you're gonna have a much fewer buyer coming to look at your house. And they say, that's fine, because I don't want anybody that try to lowball me. I don't want that many people coming in. So again, going back to listen more, you got to listen during the presentation to see what your client wants, because we are a representative of them. So it's not like, hey, they want everything, we should give them everything. I'm going to go right into the closing thing. We talk about different ways of closing. So you want to be able to satisfy them. At the same time, you got your duties, and you got to be real. If they're unreal, you got to bring it back to earth. Say, look, this is how it's going to work. And it all depends if they're a first-time seller, if they're investor, they know what they're doing. Those are usually better. Those are just numbers. If it's an investor, like if they invest in a home, but bottom line for them is a number. So you do your presentation a little bit differently. So you want to present the number, bottom line number, how much percentage and all that. And as an investor, you got to do your presentation as 1031 exchange and so forth. Not so much of but remember, tax is not our expertise. So we refer them, say, even though we talk a little bit about it, we kind of talk around it. And you want to be able to say, hey, check with your CPA. Always at the end, you check with your CPA. And tell them, I'm not a CPA, so you should check with your CPA how you want to this transaction to happen. So if you're talking to a person, and again, you got to have your knowledge, you got to have your experience. Say, well, seller, I know you bought it for $250. Is that correct? Now you're selling at $500. If we get $500,000 in sale, you probably don't have to pay any tax because the exempt, if you live here more than 2 years as a primary resident, right? That's the keyword, that you have the exemption of 250 per person. If your husband and wife, you probably get 250. Again, check with your CPA on that, please. So, but this is something they expect you to know to advise them because you are a realtor, you're supposed to know all this stuff. If you don't know these basic information and they ask you, and you don't want to tell them no, I say, I'll find out. Okay, there's also other exemption. If they say, well, I'm going to sell this home, I'm going to buy another home. Now you're talking about, well, hey, wait a minute, 2 transactions. Maybe I could represent you as a seller. And then once it's done, I could represent you as a buyer. And there's property tax exemption if they're 55 or older, Proposition 19, which allow them to transfer the current tax where they bought it at 250, what they've been paying for 250 because they're senior, they allow them to transfer that particular tax dollar amount per year to the new place, which they probably buy at more than what 250,000 could be 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. The tax base is going to be higher. So the property tax base, let me take that back. So the property tax base is going to be higher and they do not want to pay that. So by letting them know this information, they're going to think very highly of you because of your knowledge and skill. So presentation is very important. You want to gather the right information, the calm, and some knowledge about what's going to happen afterwards. So that's how you win. You don't go in like an investment presentation, which you do the number. Hey, at the end of the day, this is how much you're going to come out at closing escrow. And then you try to get the second half of the deal by buying property for them. Is that kind of help you answer the questions?
Yeah, I was looking for some specifics that you hit, but we can go on. Thank you.
Yeah, I could put together a format of a list, which I don't have because we're not talking about presentation. So I could have that, what needs to be gathered, how you present it, and how you approach the, because a lot of time, instead of I'm being interviewed, I turn around, I would interview the seller.
All right. Yeah, you gotta decide if you want to work with them also.
Right. I would interview them, see how many, and I basically would go, I know you want to know a little bit more about me, but before we start, I want to know how many agents have you interviewed? So if they interview 100 agents, more than likely, I'm going to walk out of that interview, but nicely. So chances are, this person probably not ready to sell. They just want to find out what the market is and so forth. And you're probably going to waste a lot of time. And I won't even bother to do a follow-up on it. Once the presentation is over, I'm moving on. I'm done. Unless they call me back. Then when they call me back, then I'll get into more detail. So, and you want to interview them at the same time while they're interviewing you. So that's part of the listing presentation. So yeah, like you said, do you want to work with them? Are they going to be problem down the road when after the listing? Like I just had one, they after listing for 2 weeks, they go, well, I think I want to rent instead of selling. I said, look, decide. Now here's your second chance to decide what you want. You want to sell it or you want to rent it? You tell me right away, okay? If you decided to rent, I will cancel the listing and you could do the rental. If you want me to rent it for you, I could rent it for you. But there's no money in renting, right? Renting 1 year's term, how much you make? A couple $100, maybe 1,000 or more. So the money is in selling.
Question.
Yes. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Manson. Hey, question. What if you have a buyer that's a senior citizen? Do they still get a tax break when it comes to the property taxes?
Yes, that is something. Now, you could always refer that, but you got to have some knowledge. Proposition 19, if they sold their home, if they're a victim of a disaster or a fire or a flood, and they have to buy another home because of today's market, the value is so high. Before, it used to be within the same county. Because of Proposition 19, you are allowed to go anywhere in the state of California and keep your property tax.
Okay, now what about a person buying for the first time that's a senior?
Well, you don't have a house in the first place to
Yes.
base the, yeah, so you just pay whatever.
Okay,
property
whatever.
tax, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's only apply if you already have a house, you sold it, and then your
Okay.
tax base is lower. So if you just first time buying, you don't meet that qualification. You don't have that. You have nothing to go back to as to your tax base. You don't have one.
Okay, thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? All right, let's move to closing technique. So as you can see, you have so many ways to skin a cat. You have summative close, take away close, now or never close, summary close. I love the Benjamin Franklin close. Those are for investor. How many of you heard of this type of closing? No? How many of you heard of Ben Franklin closing? No? Okay. In our sales training in the past, Benjamin Franklin's is always, it's a logical scenario that we go through. So you present it, and whether it's a listing or a selling. Let's take selling for example. Actually buying a property, right? So Benjamin Franklin close is actually from Benjamin Franklin. That's how he makes his decision. It's a decision-making process. What you do, you put a T, you get a sheet of paper, sit down with your client, you go, okay, here's how we're gonna make the decision, okay? Since you're not sure, let me propose this to you. It's called a Benjamin Franklin clause. You ask them, are you familiar with Benjamin Franklin? Yeah, he's the president, so, but do you know how he make his decision? So by putting his name, Benjamin Franklin, and how he make a decision, and the fact that he was a president, you earn a lot of credit on that, because as a president, they have to make decisions all day long. So how Benjamin Franklin made decision is based on pros and cons. So you put a piece of paper, you draw a T down the middle. So on the left side, you put pro, on the right side, you put con. And then you go through every single item. What are the pros? You list everything on there. It could be, hey, tax saving, and then the con could be just a couple things, could be 7A item. Well, you have to pay more in payment and so forth. So you sit down together with your client. You list them out, and your client would list them out, and you both of you agree on the pro and the con. And then at the end, you go, well, look at the list. The pro is outweigh the con. So it's simple. Your decision is simple. You should do it, and it's done. So that's what we call Benjamin Franklin close. It's very simple. I could draw the T and all day long. So that is one of the closing. And takeaway close, we all done that. Every day, we talk to people. We close. Either I close you or you close me. If I don't close you, you close me, right? So takeaway close is pretty simple. You have your offer here, and if your client would always come up with some kind of issue or some kind of objective, right? It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do this because I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then you could waste 10, 15 minutes going through, how you could mitigate some of this. Again, you tell them you need to get an expert on repair. If they talk about repair, you need to get an expert on it, get an estimate approximately. Don't ever put yourself in a contractor position if you're not a contractor. We're a realtor, remember? We're the middleman. We're somebody that put deals together, right? We're in the middle. And what you would do is that, well, if you look at this, if you think the construction cost, if you want to remodel this, I mean, buying a house is not is your dream home, but it's not your 100%, like if you build it from the ground up, that exactly everything that will meet what you require. Even I build my home, by the time it's finished, it's not what I want, right? So you're gonna spend some money for remodeling, definitely, right? So if you, let's say the decor is not what you like, you're gonna spend some money. And this is how much it's gonna cost you to buy it. This is, you know, how much you're gonna spend some more. And remember, just like selling or listing, buying, you're not the only buyer. You tell them, you're not the only buyer. There's like tons of buyer out there, especially right now it's seller market. Seller gets to choose. So you got to put in the best offer. Your best offer, either a best price or best term. If you want everything 100%, so is the seller want everything 100%. We have to compromise somewhere. So the takeaway is that if you want A, you won't get B. If you want B, you won't get A. If you want A and B, then you somewhere has to give. So you either give more money, you get both A and B, you get some and you lose some. So if they want everything, you go, well, you know what? Let's cancel the deal. Let's not even submit an offer and walk away. Right? So you did all this and they think you are a great agent. They think you have a great knowledge. They're going to call you back. They're going to come back to you and ask you to put a presentation to put an offer together for them. Because remember, if you represent the buyer, your duty is to the buyer, right? So you have now or never close. You know, you can look up all this. I don't want to spend a lot of time going through every single scenario. So my question to all of you is, when do you start to close? All right? Doing the initial meeting with the client, at the end of the initial meeting, doing the listing presentation, at the end of the listing presentation, doing the showing, at the end of the showing. When do you start to close? Lena, do you have any questions?
I would answer probably during the listing presentation for a seller, and then
Okay.
for a buyer, it's during the showing. I mean, it's the ABCs, always be closing.
ABC always be closing, yes. My experience is that, you know, it's up to you, whatever more comfortable for you. For me, the closing start in the very beginning when I meet the client. I start closing them. I start qualifying them. Let's say if it's a buyer. If it's a buyer, the first thing I would try to close them on, are you qualified? Do you have your money in the bank? Can you show me a bank statement, right? So you don't want to waste a lot of time with a client that is not capable of buying something that they want. If they want to buy a $2 million home, they could only afford 1 million. So you don't want to waste that time. You want to be able to gather if, again, you're talking to the right seller or talking to the right buyer. So you close them in the very beginning. And if a first-time buyer, it makes it even worse. So you got to hold their hands, right? So in the very beginning, nobody likes to be closed. So what you do is you tell them, these are the rules. These are, you lay down the foundation. Basically, you qualify, great, we could go shopping. But let me tell you what's gonna happen. Here are the process. Here are the steps. So the first thing you do is that we're gonna go shopping. After shopping, you see something we like, we'll put in an offer. So these are the steps they have to follow. So you're not really closing them. You already closed them in the beginning, right? It's already the done deal. Now just for them to follow. So it's easier for them to follow than try to close them at the end. So I don't recommend try to close them at the end because they're gonna say no. But if you close them in the very beginning, you know right away, you don't waste a lot of time trying to close them at the end, because you're gonna try to go back and bring everything up again for them to object. So you don't want to give them that opportunity. You want to close them up front. You say, okay, we got a deal. We're gonna go shopping. You qualify for this much. Great. We just a matter of finding the right home for you. So that's what I would do. That's what I've been doing. So closing is a, closing is an art. It's a skill. There's no set rule how you do it. There is steps. There is, everybody have their own technique and unique way of doing things. But what I'm giving you just some example. I mean, you could pick and choose. Some of you might like what I'm doing. Some of you might not like what I'm doing. Some of you might even have better way of doing things. And I like to learn as well, because we are learning. If you don't stop learning, you are out of date. So you just gotta keep learning new way of doing things. Like now we have a lot of way of doing things that is internet, web. Well, like right now we're having a meeting without being in person, right? So these are the things you need to learn. So if you don't want to learn, you're gonna be far behind. People are going to be making a lot of money, and you're going to be still making money, but not as much as you like, because the world is changing. The world is changing. It's constantly moving. We got to stay ahead. We got to keep moving. We got to moving forward. So, any question on closing? No. Okay. I'm gonna try to wrap it up. This presentation. It's almost 30 minutes. Actually, it's over 30 minutes. So what I like to leave all of you is that we as a realtor, we either represent the seller or the buyer, or sometimes both. So we have to understand what our role is. Our role is a middle person, a negotiator. So if we could negotiate deal between seller, buyer representative, seller representative, and you will be successful. The better negotiator you are, the more successful you're going to be. So every day while we talking right now, you have question, I have answer. It's part of negotiation. It's like anything else. We go shopping, there's Lena, you saw a Gucci bag that you really like, the price really high, and then you go, well, can I get some discount? What are you doing? You're negotiating. You try to get a better deal for yourself, right? So us being a realtor, we try to get a better deal for our clients so we could earn our commission. Of course, the higher the price, the more commission for us, but we have to make sure that if you want that high price, purchase at the high price or selling at the high price, you might not get the deal. I don't care if the commission is going to be higher, but there's no deal, no commission at the end of the day. Just keep that in mind. So if you have to suffer a little bit, get a little bit less of a commission, no big deal. You still earn a commission for all the time and effort you put in, rather than you get zero, right? So I want to leave you with, be a good negotiator. If you're not familiar with how to negotiate, go on the internet. There's a lot of presentation that offer negotiating. Again, once you go into negotiating, they talk about, sale, closing, takeaway, all the different technique, you're going to see all that. But the bottom line is your personality, who you are, how you present yourself, how confident you are when you go to a listing presentation or go to meeting a buyer, how confident, how knowledgeable you are, how experienced you are, and do not be somebody that you are not. Be genuine. Okay? Now, any questions?
This is a good time, everybody, that if you have an objection you're dealing with pretty frequently, to ask Manson.
Oh, you can ask me later. You don't want anybody to know, that's fine. Just call me or text me. No?
I'll kick us off with one then. Okay, so with door knocking, I get a lot of times people say, oh, I'm gonna die here. And I think that's their like go-to line. But I can try to have a little comeback with, oh, that's good, because I want to make sure that you have your family protected in a trust. But I was just listening to like a probate class, and it was talking about the step-up basis. So I thought maybe I could tweak it a little bit. Any thoughts on that?
Door knocking is especially cold door knocking, right? You get a lot of cold rejection because people doesn't know who you are. And nowadays they think you try to come in and rob them by representing yourself as a realtor. So what you want to do is sometimes they don't even come to the door. See, if they come to the door, you have a chance, right? You would show them your ID and make sure you have your ID, your business card and all that. That still doesn't mean anything to the seller or the homeowner. And also now, remember, you got to verify too, right? When you knock on the door and somebody comes to the door, does that mean that person is the owner or is this a tenant? So how do you know that is for sure? There's some giveaway if you run that property, if you do your homework ahead of time, but a lot of agents doesn't. They just walk around and knock on the door and hope for the best. If you do your homework, you will run that means you spend a lot of time. You would run the property address. If it comes back with a different address, more than likely as a mailing address, that property is a rental because the owner does not live there. So they have their mail sent to their other address or an investment property. And if you look at the title says LLC or a company's name, that definitely is an investment property, but there's a chance that the investor lived there themselves, but they want for whatever tax purpose. But how do you handle, going back to your question, how do you handle that they're gonna die here? I said, the first thing I would say, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm happy for you that you want to live in here. But I just want to give you some information. This is what you do. I want to give you some information. If you ever change your mind, think of calling me because I have some information that I could help you. Or even in the meantime, like Lena said, have you think about establishing a trust for any kids or if you have any child that you want to leave behind to them, the property, so they won't be heavily taxed by the government. By the way, they won't be because the inherited tax is 11.3 million. So it's not going to be happening at all. So does that kind of answer your question? You want to?
Let's role play it.
Okay.
Okay, you be the agent.
Okay.
And I'll be the seller, and it's just
Okay.
a total random. You come in with like a just listed or a just sold.
Right.
Okay.
So I'll knock on your door and say, "Hi, owner, how are you doing today?" You answer the door. You happen to answer the door. I say, "Hey, I'm the agent that sold 2 homes away from you. I just sold it to the highest price. And I sold it for over the asking price. As a matter of fact, the comps come out to approximately 650,000. I sold it for 720. And the buyer, I have buyer waiting to buy homes in this block. So I'm just wondering if you would be interested at this time to sell your property."
No, I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna die in my living room or in my bed.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm happy for you that you really like this home, that you want to stay here. Now, I understand. What I want to do is leave you my information, my card, and if you do change your mind, if you are thinking about it, if you have any children that you want to pass your inheritance on, I might have some information, a friend that is into living trust or into, what's that thing called? I don't remember. Into planning, estate planning, that I could recommend for you that help you preserve your property value so it won't be taxed by the government as much. So if you don't mind, by the way, you are the homeowner, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that information. So what I like to do, I'll give you my information. I will call you back, or if you don't mind giving me information, I know you want to hear, I will give you more, get information for you if you're interested. Just let me know. my number's there. Here's my card.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So chances are you don't want to encroach, you don't want to be hostile, you don't want to, blame, or you don't want to be negative. You want to be positive, right? So how do I come across? Sincere or affordable to try to, encroach onto your privacy?
If I were probably the homeowner trying to dismiss you with that initial statement, I think they probably would have been trying to get you off their porch a little faster.
Yeah.
But for the sake of practice, I think it was good.
Yeah, because you don't want them to go and slam the door on you. So you just want to, hey, I want to give you my card. And then that will give you a little lead on to talk about a little bit more. But most of the time, I don't do cold calling. I don't do cold door knocking because the success rate is very low. Most of my clientele is referral. So your goal is referral. So what you want to do is referral, listing referral. Buying referral, yes, you have to compete because it's a seller market. So you want to do listing referral. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions they want to practice with him?
Anyone? Anything. You can talk about anything. Doesn't have to be closing, doesn't have to be rejection or objection, or could be anything. I might not have the answer, but I could ask somebody. I'll get back to you.
Well, myself speaking of, I don't really do much door knocking. Being a man of color, not everybody wants you knocking at their doors. So I rather, like if I'm at the grocery store or if I'm out networking, which you don't do as much because of the, the pandemic.
Right.
So I may try some mailers, something like that, but I really, and I'm, me personally, I don't think, unless it's somebody that has seen me before, like people in my immediate neighborhood, other than that, I wouldn't just I mean, if you have, any ideals, I'm open, but I'm really not into a lot of door knocking.
Yeah, you don't want to be a secret agent either, right? You want to be a real estate agent.
Yes.
So you want to go out there, let people know who you are, what you do.
Yes.
So we're going to marketing, right? So what you want to do is you want to tell your friends, this is where you start with your circle of fear. It's fear is, man, your friends and family first, right? Because they already know you. They're very familiar of who you are. So you want to start with that sphere. And then it goes out into their friends. And then you go to your local church. Are you a member of the church or organization? So you want to be part of that. You want to say, hey, I want to give me a 5 minute to present myself, what I do. And then the bottom line is that you don't want to sell people. You want to help people. Your presentation should go along the line where I could help you buy a home. I could help you with you want to present yourself as expertise with knowledge and skill. A lot of my clients is they come to me for a question about real estate and then eventually end up, hey, sell your property, right? Closing, sell your property now or never. So that type of deal. So if they have issue, they have, if a renter, my landlord's been raising me a lot of that, I say, have you ever thought about buying a property? You got tax saving and so forth. So it's a lot to do with how you present yourself, your knowledge and skill, and start with your friends and family, then it branch out. Then it's going to, pretty soon everybody knows who you are, what you do. And your neighborhood.
Yes.
Where I live, I give my business card to, they might not list with you, they might not give the listing to you, but this is something for them to talk about, right? So like they said, there's so many realtors in California that half of them broke. So which means that every family might have a realtor or friends.
Exactly.
Right. So does that mean, are they good? We don't know. Does that mean that you are better than them? We don't know, but we want to give the opportunity for ourselves to at least put our foot in the door and say, hey, I'm a realtor too. I have done this many presentations. I have done this many deals. I have done commercial deal. Sometimes the friends and family is a residential realtor and you specialize in commercial and there's a need for commercial. That might fit you, they might come to you for question. So be an expert, be knowledge of what you're doing. If you don't know, learn it, go to the internet, go to YouTube, find the topic. If you have time, do it, learn it, and then ask us, talk to people that know, people that, if we don't know, we'll ask somebody. We'll ask somebody for you.
Yeah. Thanks a
It
lot.
never hurt to ask. Just just like you talk to your friend, hey, you want to sell your home? Nothing wrong with that. What are they gonna tell you? Objection, right? No. Okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
When you're ready, let me know. I could help you. I could help you. See the keys that I could help you. And then go, how can you help me? Oh, I could help you, list it and give you the best rate and put it on the market. And we could, then you don't want to give out too much. You want to say, well, let's sit down and have a meeting and have a conversation, right? So right there and then, if they're serious about selling or not. Sometimes they just talk. People love to talk.
Yeah.
Right? They love to talk.
Yes.
Let's get into action. Let's turn that talk into action. Let's turn the T into A. So let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, look, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you got it. Anybody else? Questions? Lena, looks like you have a question. No? Okay, so let's wrap it up. It's 2:00. If anything, if you have any question later on, you could always email me, text me, or call me. Well, thank you very much for all of you that showed up. And then for all of you that did not get a chance to show up, you could listen to this recording and then ask me questions afterward.